Islam is a religion of law, the Sharia law that is, but what does Sharia law actually say? Muslim scholars try to keep it secret, but we're going to reveal the secrets of Sharia law to you. Come and see. Well, hello everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to welcome you to a very, very exciting new series that we will be titling Sharia, the Muslim Talmud. And the title really is intentional, and you will know as we progress, when I say we, myself and my amazing guest that I will be introducing shortly, through the topic of Sharia, which is a topic that is usually, I found it to be intimidating to many people, and also confusing to many of the followers of Islam, because there are many different ways to interpret certain things, even though there is common ways to look at certain aspects of Sharia, which we will also touch on. It is good also to know that when it comes to certain rulings, interpretations, it may vary from one school to the other. Regardless of where you stand on your understanding of Sharia, I think this video series, which we don't know yet how long it might take, is going to be extremely powerful, extremely helpful, and extremely educational and informative to both sides, basically, to those who do not know anything about Sharia and those that maybe assume they know, a thing or two about Sharia. With me here is a dear brother. His name is Lloyd, and I have the honor, of course, to introduce him to you now and also to work with him through this video series. Brother Lloyd, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule. I know how busy you are, to really honor us and bless us by walking us through a very important topic. And what I like about it is bringing someone like yourself, who at least not a former Muslim like myself, not an Arab like myself, because I want to show people how important it is to learn about these things, even when you're not, for instance, a follower of Islam or an ex-Muslim or even a speaker of the Arabic language, because there are ample sources out there, brother, that talk about this topic. It's just a matter of how you understand it. And that's why you are here with me here today.
Thank you, Fadi. The pleasure is really all mine. I'm very honored to be here.
Could you give people just a brief overview about yourself and what you do?
My name is Lloyd de Jongh. I'm South African. I moved to Dubai in 2007. I lived in the Middle East for 11 years. I've traveled extensively across the Middle East. I worked in the national defense industry while I was there for much of that time, for most of that time. So I was working as a civilian consultant to the armed forces, to government, to law enforcement, as well as industry, to prevent sabotage, to prevent the destruction of critical national infrastructure, and of course harm to people. So protecting places like critical borders, preventing incursions, also VVIP residences, things like protecting power stations, Air Force bases and things like that, designing very long range, wide area, multi-million-dollar security systems. So I've traveled to all of the hotspots, providing my assistance and input. I've spent a lot of time with the military. I was very close with the people of the Middle East because I would go on assignment. I've had relationships with the people and I've met some wonderful people, but I also learned a great deal about the culture, and I was also left with a number of questions which I wanted to study, and I eventually studied them quite deeply.
Wonderful. When it comes to the topic of Sharia, by the way, your name was brought up to my attention multiple times, which tells me that you have devoted a lot of your ministry time to talk about this topic. Why Sharia, and how did you come about to become kind of like an expert in the field, if you wish?
It was really there were more than one factor that got me to look beyond the standard narrative of the Quran and the Hadith, because there was always this confusion, this going in circles. The Quran has one verse that says A and then another verse that says B, and this was just this going in circles back and forth. And I felt there needed to be some sort of definitive understanding behind all of this. And I decided to do an online counterterrorism course because I was involved in that field, effectively in that field. And at the university, what I learned was that the entire faculty was terrified of discussing, when we got to the subject of Islamic terrorism, they refused to discuss Islamic terrorism. We could talk about Buddhist terrorists, Christian terrorists. They were willing to delve into depth and critique and so on. But when it got to Islam, and ISIS was very, very active at that time, it was like, oh, well, yes, ISIS, not real Muslims. Look, there's a squirrel. Okay, guys, let's move on to Buddhism now. And I found this very, very strange. The rector, the dean of the academy, refused to engage in discussion with the Muslim Brotherhood. At the time, I was working closely with multiple governments across the Middle East, and the Muslim Brotherhood was definitely an issue, and he refused to see them as anything other than benign. Also, there were people in the course that had no attachment to the field. Like, one was a housewife, one was a retired accountant, another was a geography student who was 19, and they were policing the chat, and they would complain bitterly the moment anything was said about Islam. And the faculty was terrified of complaints. And eventually, what happened was the Bataclan in Paris. And after that atrocity, I started to look into the books that were being found and the libraries that were uncovered, that they were, because ISIS was very careful, as well as Al-Qaeda and other groups. They have indoctrination sessions. They teach not only the Quran and the Hadith, but they also teach the Sharia. And there were books that came out that I eventually learned about. I had access to these for the time. And I discovered various Sharia manuals. And these were then the orthodox understanding of Islam. And when I introduced this material into the discussion of the group, I was banned the next day.
Wow. Well, brother, I just want to tell our viewers that we've decided to do short segments. And so every one of these videos in this long series is going to be an average of 11 to 12 minutes. So having said that, Lloyd, we have about 5 to 6 minutes that applies to this introductory part, which we can continue in the next one. But what would you like to share with us by way of introduction here?
So I can do a very brief introduction, perhaps 4 slides that we can go through. And just to give people a taste of where we're going to go, and just as a lead in to the topic.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay. So if you see my slides, well, so I've called this the Muslim Talmud. It's the Sharia and the Fiqh, Islam's sacred law. So these are different terms that all refer effectively to the same thing. There is a distinction between Sharia and Fiqh. However, as a general term, people just call, even the Muslim scholars call it the Sharia.
Yes.
We will work through the distinctions. We will get through that as we go. Right. So let me continue. So Sharia, we need to ask ourselves, is it sacred or is it secret? Because people don't know anything about it.
Correct.
Really, this is something that is actually kept very, very private. And there are reasons for that. We will uncover those as we go through. But notice in Islam, there's a very strong push into politics. And you'll see here, for instance, in these pictures, you've got the Sharia police zone, Sharia control zone, Sharia, the only option for the UK. Sharia will dominate the world. Sharia is the only solution. Sharia for Britain. Well, Muslims want Sharia, but what is this Sharia? It's not just the Quran. It's not just, they don't want Hadith for the world. They want the Sharia. This is a law. So the question is, Islam is a religion of law. Then we need to ask ourselves, what are its laws? Now, Muslims say that the Quran is an Arabic Quran, but if we have a look through this, and this is on my YouTube page, in my community page, this is a book called The Foreign Words in the Quran by Arthur Jeffrey, and I've made this spreadsheet to describe, well, to show a list of the multiple, and in fact, this is only half of the list. So you'll see that there are numerous foreign words in the Quran, from Syriac, Aramaic, Hebrew, Greek, Ethiopic, and so on and so on. But one should ask oneself, why is there so many Greek words in the Quran? Why so much Hebrew? And the development of the Sharia is part of the reason why Islam has absorbed so many foreign words into its vocabulary, into the Arabic, right? So we'll be looking at some of these words. We're looking at some of the source, especially the Greek and the Hebrew will be relevant to us during this discussion. Now, secrets and weaknesses. Now, it must be noted that, well, let me read this and you guys make up your own minds what this says. If a Quran is being purchased for someone, it is obligatory that the person be Muslim. The same is true of books of hadith and books containing the words and deeds of the early Muslims. Quran in this context means any work that contains some of the Quran, even a slight amount. This ruling holds for any religious books, even the Tabaqat of Shar'ani, a collection of the biographical sketches of Muslims. Now, this is taken from the world's most popular, the world's most common Islamic law manual called The Reliance of the Traveler, the Umdat al-Salik. I'll show one more item linked to this. This is in a chapter called R8.0, Holding One's Tongue. It says, do not assist one another in sin and aggression, Quran 5.2. So the Sharia does reference the Quran. But this speaks here of giving directions to wrongdoers. And it says, this includes showing the way to policemen and tyrants when they are going to commit injustice and corruption. Now, for instance, the Bataclan. Why did the Muslim community in Molenbeek hide those terrorists for months, not saying a word? Because they would be showing the way to policemen and tyrants to commit injustice, because what those Muslims did was fully legal. And those policemen interrupting them, that would be considered a crime against Islam. But notice number 2, teaching questions of sacred law to those learning it in bad faith, who do not want the knowledge to apply it in their lives. So Muslims, if they do know the Sharia, they're not allowed to teach it to anyone who's learning it in bad faith. For instance, I'm not learning it to become a Muslim. I'm not learning it to become a better Muslim. I'm learning it to understand and critique Islam. I'm using it to delve into Islam. Therefore, I'm learning it in bad faith. And
that's right. And for me
not
also,
allowed to speak about it.
For me, Lloyd, I am an insider now who is sharing secrets. And so you and I fit in the same category, meaning that we are exposing something that others should not know about.
And that actually falls under the laws of what's called ghibba, which is the laws of tale-bearing. So you've got namima and ghibba, which is tale-bearing, as well as, forgive me, the word has just slipped my mind. Hopefully you can make an edit here. The word for slander. My apologies. So us speaking about Islam literally falls under 2 categories, namima and ghibba, which is tale-bearing and slander. In Islam, so in Western law, if I lie about someone and I hurt their name and reputation, that is slander. In Islam, if you tell the truth about someone that they do not like, that is slander. And we can go into those laws another time.
Yeah, so you're talking about the ghaiba and namima. That's what you're referring to. Yeah.
Yeah. And Sharia is effectively secret. And for a Muslim to reveal it is effectively treason.
Yes, absolutely. Well, is there anything else you want to add just to this segment before we move on to the next segment?
No, this is sufficient. And hopefully this gives people an introduction as to why no one knows anything about Sharia, because they're not allowed to speak about the Sharia. That's if they know it.
Absolutely. Excellent way to end. And that's why our viewers here, hopefully you find this show to be exciting. And I'm sure this teaser, at least in this introductory part, would have basically fulfilled that aspect of exciting you and getting you to really tune in now to begin to watch this very long series. I mean, we don't know yet how long it will be, but we want to be also slow in sharing it, methodical in sharing it, because there is a lot of resources that we are going to offer. And by the way, you will find out that at least under one of these videos, the first one, we're going to give you a lot of links. Brother Lloyd is kind enough to share with us the resources, the references where you can go and see for yourself, of course. Why? Because we want to affirm, collaborate, and show you that whatever we're sharing with you here does not come out of our own opinion. It's actually listed in Islamic sources, and you have access to the same sources that we will be sharing with you. Brother, thank you so much as always. I can't wait until we do the second part, of course, and continue from there. Everyone else, thank you so much for watching. This is Fadi, over and out. God bless. Thank you for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Shariah International, and click on the bell so that you receive notifications whenever we publish a new video or go live. I would also like to appeal to you to consider becoming a Patreon patron by clicking the link right below. By doing so, you can give towards the production of these videos. There are also other options for you where you can give to our channel. I thank you from the bottom of my heart.